Deathworlders replied to alien SOS with a ruthless fleet response. Part 1, The Signal. The deep space monitoring station called Sentinel-7 floated in the cold darkness between stars. It was a quiet place. Nothing much happened there. The crew spent their days watching screens, checking signals, and waiting for something interesting to find them. Lieutenant Una Park sat at her station and stared at the same screen she had watched for 3 years. She was young, only 26 years old, but she was very good at her job. She could hear patterns in the noise of space that others missed. Tonight, something was different. A strange sound came through her headphones. It was not the usual static. It was not a star or a pulsar or any natural thing. It repeated. Again and again, the same pattern played. Una sat up straight in her chair. Her heart beat faster. She ran the signal through her computer and watched the results appear on her screen. The computer did not know what it was, but Una did. Someone was calling for help. She pressed the button to record everything and called her commander. Within an hour, the small station was full of activity. People who had been sleeping were now awake and working. The signal was real, and it came from a place called the Kepler 442 system, very far away. The message was broken and weak. It used numbers and patterns that any intelligent species could understand. Dr. Jiwoo Han, a woman who studied alien languages, worked through the night to decode it. By morning, she had something. "They harvest us," Jiwoo read from her screen. Her voice was quiet and sad. "Please, anyone." The room went silent. Everyone understood what those words meant. Somewhere out there, people were being taken. They were being used like animals, and they were begging for someone to save them. The signal also carried an image. It was dark and hard to see, but it showed a large space filled with bodies. Thousands of beings packed together like cargo. Some stood on 2 legs, some had 4. Some had shapes that no human had ever seen before, but they all looked the same in one way. They all looked afraid. Admiral Deho Kim received the report on his flagship, the Busan's Fury. He was an old soldier, 63 years old, with gray hair and a face marked by many years of war. He had fought in the unification wars on Earth, when humanity finally stopped fighting itself and became one people. He had seen terrible things, but this image made even him feel sick. He called a meeting of his senior officers. They gathered in the war room and looked at the evidence together. Captain Teak Choi, a serious man who commanded the destroyer Iron Wolf, spoke first. "It could be a trap," he said. "We don't know who sent this. We don't know what's waiting for us." Captain Suji Lee of the carrier Dokdo nodded. "We would be going into unknown space with no backup. If something goes wrong, no one can help us." Admiral Kim listened to them all. They were right to be careful. The universe was dangerous, and humanity had only been traveling between stars for 80 years. They did not know what was out there. But Kim could not forget the image. Those thousands of beings, trapped and waiting for death. He thought about Earth's history, about all the times people had suffered while others did nothing. He thought about the promise humanity made when they united: never again. "I understand the risks," Kim said. His voice was calm but firm. "But we did not survive ice ages, plagues, and nuclear war just to ignore a cry for help. We are Deathworlders. We come from a planet that tried to kill us every single day, and we are still here." He stood up and looked at his officers. "We will answer this signal. We will find out who is doing this, and we will stop them." The orders went out across the fleet. 47 warships began to prepare for the journey. Engineers checked every system. Pilots tested their fighters. Soldiers loaded their weapons and said goodbye to their families through video messages. Una Park watched from the station as the great fleet began to move. She had never seen anything so beautiful and so frightening at the same time. These ships were built for war. They carried enough weapons to destroy cities, and they were going to save people they had never met. Dr. Jiwoo Han transferred to the flagship to continue her work. She spent the long journey studying the signal, learning everything she could about the beings who sent it. She discovered that they called themselves the Murray. They were gentle creatures who could share emotions through touch. They had no weapons, no armies. They had been easy prey. The fleet traveled for 3 weeks through the darkness of space. The faster-than-light engines hummed and glowed as they bent the fabric of reality. Inside the ships, humans ate together, trained together, and prepared for what was coming. Admiral Kim spent many nights alone in his quarters, looking at star maps and thinking. He did not know what they would find. He did not know if his ships were strong enough. But he knew one thing for certain: he would not turn back. On the final day of the journey, the fleet gathered at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Through the windows, the crew could see distant stars and a pale yellow sun. Somewhere ahead, in orbit around a cold planet, was the source of the signal. Kim stood on the bridge of the Buson's Fury and took a deep breath. Behind him, the crew worked at their stations, ready for his command. Around him, 46 other ships waited in formation, their weapons armed and their shields raised. "All ships," he said into the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Kim. We came here because someone asked for help. We do not know what we will find. We do not know if we will all come home. But we know why we are here. We are here because it is right." He paused and looked at the distant star ahead. "Begin approach. May fortune favor the brave." The fleet moved forward as one, sliding through the darkness toward an enemy they had never seen. On every ship, humans stood ready. They were afraid, but they did not run. They were Deathworlders, children of a violent planet, and they had come to bring justice to the stars. Una Park, now serving on the flagship, watched the screens as new data appeared. There were ships ahead, many ships, and a massive structure that pulsed with strange energy. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I'm detecting life signs on that station, over 200,000 of them." Kim nodded slowly. His hands tightened on the railing in front of him. "Then we have 200,000 reasons to win." The battle for freedom was about to begin. Deathworlders replied to alien SOS with a ruthless fleet response. Part 2, First Contact. The Terran fleet moved slowly through the outer edges of the star system. Every sensor was active. Every weapon was ready. On the bridge of the Buson's Fury, Admiral Deho Kim watched the main screen with careful eyes. The station appeared first. It was enormous, larger than any human space station ever built. It hung in orbit around a gray, lifeless planet, spinning slowly in the darkness. Dozens of smaller ships were docked to its ports, like insects feeding on a dead animal. "Sir," Una Park said from her station, "I'm reading the life signs more clearly now. There are at least 14 different species on that station. Most of them are in the lower sections, packed very tightly together." Kim felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. "And the ships?" 120 vessels, Admiral, various sizes. They're arranged in a defensive pattern around the station. Captain Teak Choi's voice came through the communication channel from the Iron Wolf. "They've seen us. I'm detecting targeting systems coming online." Kim nodded. He had expected this. "All ships maintain formation. Do not fire unless fired upon. Let's see who we're dealing with." For several long minutes, nothing happened. The two groups of ships faced each other across the empty space. Then, a signal came through. Dr. Jiwoohan worked quickly at her console. "It's a transmission, Admiral. They want to talk." "Put it through." The main screen flickered and a face appeared. It was not human. The creature had pale blue skin that seemed almost transparent. Its eyes were large and silver without any visible pupils. It had no nose, just two small holes above a thin mouth. When it spoke, its voice was smooth and cold, translated by the computer into words humans could understand. "Unknown vessels. You have entered Velkari Consortium space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Kim stepped forward. I am Admiral Deho Kim of the United Terran Navy. We received a distress signal from this location. We are here to investigate. The alien tilted its head slightly. Its silver eyes studied Kim with what might have been curiosity. Distress signal. Ah, yes. The cargo sometimes makes noise. It is of no concern to you. Cargo? Kim's voice hardened. Those are living beings. The Velkari made a sound that might have been laughter. Of course they are living. Dead cargo is worthless. We are traders, Admiral. We collect lesser species and distribute them to those who have use for them. It is a very old business, very profitable. Behind Kim, he heard someone curse quietly. He understood the feeling. These creatures talked about slavery like they were discussing the weather. I am ordering you to release those beings immediately, Kim said. They are not cargo, they are people. What you are doing is wrong. The Velkari stared at him for a long moment. Then it laughed again, louder this time. Wrong. Little creature, the Velkari Consortium has ruled this sector for 12,000 years. We decide what is right and wrong. We decide who lives and who serves. The alien leaned closer to the screen. I see now what you are, a new species, primitive. You have only recently discovered how to travel between stars. How cute, how brave of you to come here and make demands. It smiled, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. Here is what will happen. You will surrender your vessels. Your crew will be processed and sorted. The strong ones will work. The weak ones will feed our allies. And you, Admiral, will watch it all before we sell you to someone who collects rare specimens. Kim did not move. His face remained completely calm. Is that your final answer? It is the only answer. You have no choice. Look at your tiny fleet. We have 120 ships. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have 47 ships, Kim interrupted. We have weapons that were designed to fight wars on a planet where everything wants to kill us, and we have something you clearly do not have. What is that? Kim smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Motivation. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All ships, battle stations, prepare to engage. The bridge exploded into action. Alarms sounded. Lights changed from white to red. Throughout the fleet, thousands of humans moved to their positions. Captain Suji Lee's voice came through from the docto. Admiral, fighter wings are ready to launch. Just give the word. Hold them for now. Let's see what they do first. The Velkari fleet began to move. The ships spread out, forming a wide circle around the Terran formation. They moved slowly, confidently. They had done this many times before. Surround the prey, crush it, take what was left. But they had never faced humans before. On the Iron Wolf, Captain Choi watched the enemy ships approach. He was a quiet man who did not speak much. But when he spoke, people listened. He had served in the Navy for 30 years and had fought in more battles than he could count. They're overconfident, he said to his first officer. Look at how spread out they are. They think we're already beaten. His first officer, a young woman named Hana, nodded. They've never lost. They don't know how to be careful. That's going to be a problem for them. The Velkari commander appeared on the screens again. This is your last chance, little creatures. Surrender now, or we will destroy you. Kim looked at the screen. Then he looked at his crew. He saw their faces, determined and ready. He thought about the 200,000 beings trapped on that station, waiting for someone to save them. All ships, he said quietly, open fire. The darkness of space lit up with weapons fire. 47 Terran warships unleashed everything they had at once. Missiles streamed through the void. Energy beams cut across the distance. The first Velkari ships were hit before they even understood what was happening. The enemy responded quickly, but not quickly enough. Their ships were powerful, but they were designed for intimidation, not real combat. They had spent thousands of years bullying weaker species who could not fight back. They had forgotten what a real battle looked like. The Terran fleet did not forget. Every ship knew exactly where to be and what to do. They worked together like a single organism, covering each other, supporting each other, striking weak points in the enemy formation. On the dock, Captain Lee gave the order, "Launch all fighters, target enemy command ships." 200 small craft screamed out of the carrier's bays. They moved fast, faster than the Velkari targeting systems could track. Lieutenant Hyun Kang led Viper Squadron straight into the heart of the enemy formation. "Stay tight, everyone," he said into his radio. "Pick your targets, don't waste ammunition." The Velkari had never seen attack craft used this way. Their ships were big and powerful but slow. The human fighters danced around them like angry insects, hitting critical systems and disappearing before the enemy could respond. The first Velkari cruiser exploded, then another, then 3 more at the same time. On the enemy flagship, the commander watched in shock as his fleet began to die. This was not possible. They were the Velkari. They were the masters of this sector. These primitive creatures should be begging for mercy. "All ships concentrate fire on the largest enemy vessel," he ordered. "Destroy their leader." A dozen Velkari ships turned toward the Busan's Fury and opened fire together. The human flagship shook under the assault. Alarms screamed. Crew members fell. But the ship held. Its shields, designed to survive asteroid impacts and solar flares, absorbed the punishment. And behind it, 3 destroyers moved into position. Captain Choi smiled grimly. "Now." The Iron Wolf and its 2 sister ships fired as one. Their combined attack punched straight through the Velkari flagship's shields and tore open its hull. Fire bloomed in the darkness. The enemy commander had just enough time to feel fear before his ship broke apart. The battle was not over, but the message was clear. The Deathworlders had arrived and they had come to fight. Deathworlders replied to alien SOS with a ruthless fleet response. Part 3, The Wrath of Earth. The battle filled the space around the station with fire and death. Velkari ships burned. Human ships took damage but kept fighting. The darkness of space was lit by explosions that looked like small suns being born and dying in seconds. Lieutenant Hyun Kang flew his fighter through the chaos with steady hands. His squadron had already destroyed 4 enemy ships, but there were still many more. The Velkari were starting to panic. He could see it in the way they moved, breaking formation, shooting wildly at anything that came near. "Viper 3, watch your left," he called out. A Velkari ship was turning toward one of his pilots. The pilot, a woman named Minji, spun her craft and dove under the enemy attack. The Velkari weapons missed her by less than 10 meters. She came up behind the ship and fired her missiles into its engines. The ship went dark and drifted away, powerless. "Thanks, lead," Minji said. "That was too close." "Stay sharp, we're not done yet." On the bridge of the Busan's Fury, Admiral Kim watched the battle unfold. The Terran fleet was winning, but the cost was growing. 2 destroyers had been hit badly and were retreating to repair. 1 frigate was gone completely, destroyed by concentrated enemy fire. "Admiral," Unipark called out, "enemy ships are trying to flee. 12 vessels are breaking away and heading for deep space." Kim considered for a moment. Those ships would carry news of what happened here. They would warn others about the humans. Part of him wanted that. Let the galaxy know that humanity was not to be threatened. But another part of him remembered the beings on that station. If those ships escaped, they would bring reinforcements. More slavers, more suffering. "Captain Choi, pursue those ships. Do not let them reach open space." The Iron Wolf and 2 other destroyers broke away from the main battle and chased the fleeing Velkari. They were faster, more agile. Within minutes, they had caught up. The Velkari tried to fight. They turned and fired desperately at their pursuers. But Terran destroyers were built for exactly this kind of combat. They moved in groups of 3, coordinating their attacks, covering each other's weak spots. Captain Choi watched as the last fleeing ship tried to surrender. It stopped firing and broadcast a signal asking for mercy. He thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "They didn't show mercy to their captives," he said quietly, "but we are not them." He opened a channel to the enemy ship. "Power down your weapons completely and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be answered with force." The Valkyrie ship obeyed. Its weapons went dark. Its engines stopped. It hung in space, waiting. Back at the main battle, the fight was almost over. Only 30 Valkyrie ships were still operating, and they were surrounded. Captain Suji Lee brought the Dokdo into the center of the formation, its massive hull blocking enemy escape routes. "All remaining Valkyrie vessels," Admiral Kim broadcast, "you have lost. Your flagship is destroyed. Your fleet is broken. Surrender now and you will live. Continue fighting and you will die." For a long moment nothing happened. Then one by one the Valkyrie ships stopped firing. Their weapons powered down. Their shields dropped. They surrendered. The battle had lasted 4 hours. 67 Valkyrie ships were destroyed. 41 were captured. 12 had fled, but only for a short time. The Terran fleet had lost 6 vessels. 143 humans were dead. Many more were wounded. It was a victory, but it did not feel like one. Not yet. "All boarding teams prepare for assault," Admiral Kim ordered. "We take that station." Sergeant Minyu Beek led the first team through the docking port. He was a big man with a shaved head and arms covered in scars. He had been a soldier for 20 years and had seen many terrible things, but nothing prepared him for what was inside that station. The smell hit them first. It was the smell of too many bodies in too small a space, the smell of fear and sickness and despair. Minyu had smelled death before, but this was worse. This was the smell of broken hope. They moved through dark corridors, their flashlights cutting through the shadows. The station was designed to process beings, to sort them and prepare them for sale. There were examination rooms with cold metal tables. There were holding cells with no windows. There were feeding stations with bowls on the floor, like the captives were animals. "Sergeant," one of his soldiers said quietly, "I've got movement ahead." They advanced carefully. Around a corner they found the first captives, 20 small beings huddled together in a cage. They had 6 limbs and smooth brown skin. Their eyes were huge and dark, and they looked at the human soldiers with pure terror. Minyu lowered his weapon. He held up his empty hands. "It's okay," he said gently. "We're here to help. We're not going to hurt you." The beings did not understand his words, but they understood his tone. Slowly, very slowly, one of them came forward. It was smaller than the others, perhaps a child. It reached through the bars of the cage and touched Minyu's hand. He felt something then, a wave of emotion that was not his own, fear mostly, but also something else, a tiny spark of hope. Minyu turned to his team. "Find the controls for these cages. Get them open, now." Throughout the station, human soldiers worked to free the captives. There were so many of them. The Murray, the gentle telepaths who had sent the distress signal. The Aruni, small 6-limbed engineers who had been forced to repair the slavers' ships. And 12 other species, each with their own stories of capture and suffering. Medical teams came next. Dr. Yoonji Shin led a group of doctors and nurses into the holding areas. What she saw made her want to cry, but she did not have time for tears. There were too many beings who needed help. She worked for hours, treating wounds and infections, giving food and water to those who had not eaten in days. The captives watched her with confused eyes. They had only known cruelty from their captors. They did not understand why these strange new creatures were being kind. One of the Murray, an older female with silver patterns on her skin, reached out and touched Yoonji's face. Suddenly, Yoonji felt everything the Murray was feeling. Gratitude so strong it hurt. Relief that felt like a weight lifting from her soul. And underneath it all, a question. Why? Why did you come? Yoonji did not know how to answer with thoughts, so she spoke out loud. "Because someone asked for help, and we always answer." The Murray closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek. On the bridge of the Buson's Fury, Admiral Kim received reports from all over the station. 247,000 beings rescued, 14 species, most of which humanity had never seen before. The slavers had been operating here for centuries, taking people from across the sector. "Sir," an officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the captured Velkari commander." Kim nodded. "Put it through." A Velkari face appeared on the screen. This one was older than the first commander, with darker blue skin and deep lines around its silver eyes. It spoke with cold fury. "You have no idea what you have done, human. The Velkari Consortium will not forgive this insult. You have attacked our property. You have stolen our cargo. You have killed our people." Kim stared at the screen without blinking. "Your property was people. Your cargo was innocent beings taken from their homes, and your people were slavers who deserved what they got." "You will pay for this," the Velkari hissed. "We will bring every ship we have. We will find your homeworld. We will make your entire species into cargo. Your children will be born in cages. Your—" Kim cut the transmission. He had heard enough. He turned to his crew. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them what we found here. Tell them the Velkari are coming. And tell them to get ready because we're going to finish what we started." The war had begun. Deathworlders replied to Alien SOS with a ruthless fleet response. Part 4, Liberation. The days after the battle were long and exhausting. The Terran fleet had won, but there was still so much work to do. 247,000 beings needed food, medicine, and shelter. The station that had been their prison now became their temporary home. Dr. Yoonji Shin had not slept in 3 days. Every time she tried to rest, someone brought her another patient. A Murray child with broken bones, an Oruni engineer who had been beaten by the guards, a being from a species she had never seen before, dying from a disease she did not understand. She saved most of them, some she could not. Those were the hardest moments. On the 4th day, she finally sat down in a quiet corner of the medical bay. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep. She wondered if she could go on. Then a small hand touched her shoulder. She looked up and saw an Oruni standing beside her. The creature was no taller than her waist, with 6 thin limbs and large brown eyes. It was holding a cup of water. Yoonji took the cup and drank. The water was warm, but it was the kindest thing anyone had done for her in days. "Thank you," she said. The Oruni made a series of clicks and whistles. Yoonji's translator turned it into words. "You help us. We help you. This is how it should be." Yoonji smiled for the first time in days. "Yes, this is how it should be." Throughout the station, humans and former captives were learning to work together. The Oruni were brilliant engineers. Their chief, a female named Lyra, had examined the Terran ships and found dozens of ways to improve them. She brought her ideas to Chief Engineer Dongwoo Seo, who listened with growing amazement. "This modification to the shield harmonics," he said, studying her designs. "It would increase efficiency by 15%. How did you figure this out?" Lyra made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We spent years repairing Velkari ships. We learned their weaknesses. We also learned how to make things better, but they never asked us. They only wanted obedience." Dongwoo nodded slowly. "Well, I'm asking, what else can you teach us?" The partnership between humans and Oruni grew quickly. The small engineers worked alongside human technicians, sharing knowledge that neither species could have developed alone. Within a week, the Terran fleet was stronger than before the battle. But not everyone trusted the humans. Some of the rescued species had seen too much cruelty to believe that anyone would help them without wanting something in return. They watched the Terran soldiers with suspicious eyes, waiting for the moment when the humans would reveal their true nature. Dr. Jiwoo Han spent her days trying to build bridges. She learned words in 12 different languages. She studied body movements and facial expressions. She tried to understand what each species needed to feel safe. The hardest were the Murray. They could feel emotions through touch, which meant they could sense every feeling around them. The humans carried anger and determination and the echoes of violence. To the Murray, it felt overwhelming. Jiwoo found their leader, an elder named Sara, sitting alone in a dark room. The Murray did not need light to see. They sensed the world through other means. "May I sit with you?" Jiwoo asked. Sara did not answer, but she did not tell Jiwoo to leave. The human sat down on the cold floor and waited. "You are dangerous," Sora said finally. Her voice was soft and musical. "All of you. You carry death inside you like a fire that never stops burning." Jiwoo thought about this. "You're right," she admitted. "Humans are dangerous. We evolved on a world that was trying to kill us. We had to become strong to survive." "Then why should we trust you? How are you different from the Velkari?" It was a fair question. Jiwoo had asked herself the same thing many times. The Velkari used their strength to take from others, to hurt, to control. We use ours to protect. That's the difference. That's why we came here. Because you asked for help and we believe that strength should be used to defend the weak, not to prey on them. Sora was quiet for a long time. Then she reached out and touched Jiwoo's hand. The wave of emotion hit Jiwoo like a physical force. She felt Sora searching through her feelings, examining her thoughts, looking for lies or hidden cruelty. It was uncomfortable, almost painful, but Jiwoo did not pull away. When it was over, Sora opened her eyes. They were wet with tears. "You speak truth," she whispered. "You truly came to save us. You risked your lives for strangers you had never met." "Yes." "Why?" Jiwoo smiled gently. "Because that's who we are, that's who we want to be." From that day forward, the Murray began to trust the humans. They shared their knowledge of the sector, the species that lived there, and the full extent of the Velkari Consortium's power. What they revealed was terrifying. The Velkari controlled over 100 star systems. They had thousands of ships. They had been taking slaves for 12,000 years, building an empire on the suffering of others. And now they knew about Earth. Admiral Kim received the intelligence reports with grim acceptance. He had known this was coming. The Velkari would not let their defeat go unanswered. They would bring their full strength against humanity. "How long do we have?" he asked. Dr. Han translated Sora's response. "The Velkari need time to gather their forces, perhaps 3 months, perhaps less." 3 months. It was not much time, but it would have to be enough. Kim sent the fleet's fastest ship back to Earth with all the information they had gathered. The government needed to know what was coming. They needed to prepare every weapon, build every ship, train every soldier. The survival of humanity depended on it. Meanwhile, the rescued beings faced a choice. Some wanted to go home, back to whatever worlds the Velkari had taken them from. The fleet would help them if possible, but many had no homes to return to. Their planets had been destroyed or occupied. Their families were dead or scattered across the galaxy. For these beings, Admiral Kim made an offer. "Come with us," he said through the translators. "We have a colony world called New Busan. It's a young planet still growing. There's room for anyone who wants to build a new life." Not everyone accepted. Some were too afraid. Some did not believe the humans would really let them live freely. But many said yes. Over 180,000 beings chose to follow the Terran fleet to their new home. The journey took weeks. During that time, humans and aliens learned to live together. They shared meals and stories. They taught each other games and songs. They became, slowly and carefully, something like friends. Lyra the Aruni spent most of her time in the engine room with Dongwu. Together, they designed new weapons and improved old ones. The Velkari would be surprised when they came, very surprised. Sara the Murray worked with the fleet's medical teams. Her people could sense pain and illness before machines could detect them. They saved many lives, both human and alien. And Una Park, the young lieutenant who had first heard the distress signal, found herself becoming a bridge between species. She had a gift for listening, for understanding what people needed. She spent her days moving between groups, solving problems, building trust. One night, as the fleet approached New Busan, she stood at a window and watched the stars. A Murray child came to stand beside her. The child did not speak, but reached up and took Yuna's hand. Una felt the child's emotions wash over her, wonder at the stars, curiosity about the new world ahead, and underneath it all, something warm and precious. Hoping. The child looked up at her with large, dark eyes. Without words, it asked a question: will we be safe? Una squeezed the small hand gently. Yes, she promised. We'll keep you safe, no matter what it takes. She did not know if she could keep that promise. The Velkari were coming, and they were bringing an armada that made the first battle look like a small skirmish. But she meant every word. The humans would protect these people, even if it cost them everything. That was what it meant to be strong. Deathworlders replied to Alien SOS with a ruthless fleet response. Part 5, The Deathworld Doctrine. 3 months passed like water through fingers. Every day was filled with work, preparation, and fear. On Earth and its colony worlds, factories ran day and night. Ships were built faster than anyone thought possible. Soldiers trained until they collapsed, then woke up and trained more. Admiral Deho Kim stood on the bridge of the Busan's Fury and watched his fleet assemble. 312 Terran warships floated in formation around New Busan. It was the largest military force humanity had ever gathered in one place. And it might not be enough. The scouts had reported the Velkari armada the day before, 2,000 ships carrying warriors from 3 allied species. They were coming to destroy humanity and take back their property. They were coming to teach the galaxy that no one defied the consortium. Kim felt the weight of command pressing down on him. So many lives depending on his decisions. So many people trusting him to keep them safe. He was 63 years old, and he had never felt so tired. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. Admiral. He turned and saw Dr. Jiwoo Han standing behind him. She looked as tired as he felt, but there was fire in her eyes. The Allied Council is ready for you, she said. Kim nodded and followed her to the meeting room. When he entered, he saw faces from a dozen species looking back at him. The Murray Elder Sora sat beside the Oruni Chief Lyra. Representatives from 8 other rescued species filled the remaining seats. Thank you all for coming, Kim said. You know what is approaching. The Velkari mean to destroy us all. I want you to know that the Terran fleet will fight. We will protect this world and everyone on it. But I also understand if you want to leave. No one is forcing you to stay. Sora stood slowly. Her silver patterns caught the light as she moved. Admiral Kim, my people have discussed this. We will not run. The humans came when we called for help. You risked everything for us. Now it is our turn to stand beside you. She turned to the other representatives. One by one, they nodded. Lyra stepped forward next. The Oruni have prepared 40 vessels. They are not warships, but we have modified them with weapons. We have also created something special. She looked at Kim with her large brown eyes. A gift for the Velkari, a surprise they will not expect. Other species offered what they could. Some had only a single shuttle with volunteers. Others had knowledge of Velkari tactics and weaknesses. All of them were willing to fight. Kim felt something warm spread through his chest. It was hope. Thank you, he said. All of you. Together, we will show the Velkari what happens when they threaten free people. The next morning, the enemy arrived. Captain Hana Jiang stood on the bridge of the battleship Soul's Promise and watched the Velkari fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel. There were so many ships that they blocked out the stars. The sensors struggled to count them all. 2,247 vessels, her first officer reported. His voice was steady, but she could see his hands shaking slightly. "That's a lot of ships," Hana said calmly. "Good thing we brought friends." Around the Soul's Promise, the Coalition fleet waited in perfect formation. Terran warships formed the core, their weapons charged and ready. Beside them flew the Aruni engineering vessels, now bristling with cannons. The Murray ships floated in clusters, their telepathic crews already reaching out to connect with allied commanders. And scattered throughout the formation were vessels from every species the humans had rescued. Small ships, old ships, ships that should not have been in a battle at all. But their crews were determined. They would not let the Velkari win. The enemy fleet stopped at the edge of the system. A transmission came through on all frequencies. "Humans," the voice was cold and arrogant. "You have one chance to survive. Surrender now. Give us back our property. Accept your place as servants of the consortium. Refuse and we will destroy you." Admiral Kim's response went out to both fleets. Every being in the system heard his words. "You built your empire on the belief that the strong exist to hurt the weak. You were wrong. The strong exist to protect the weak. That is what makes them truly strong." He paused. "We will not surrender, we will not give you the people you stole, and we will not accept slavery for ourselves or anyone else. Come and try to take them. We are waiting." The Velkari commander laughed. "Foolish creatures, you will die screaming." "No," Kim said quietly, "we won't." Captain Hana Jiang smiled and gave the order. "All ships, fire." The Battle of New Busan began. The first minutes were chaos. Thousands of weapons fired at once. Shields flared and failed. Ships exploded on both sides. The darkness of space became a sea of fire and death. But something strange happened. The Velkari fleet, despite its size, began to struggle. Their ships did not work together. Each captain fought alone, trying to protect themselves first. When one ship was in danger, others did not rush to help. They had never learned to trust each other. They had never needed to. The Coalition fleet was different. The Murray telepaths connected every commander's mind. They shared information instantly, faster than any computer. When a Terran destroyer was flanked, 3 Aruni ships moved to support it without any orders being given. When a gap opened in the Velkari formation, a dozen Coalition vessels pushed through together. Captain Teak Choi led the Iron Wolf into the heart of the enemy fleet. Around him, his destroyers moved like wolves hunting in a pack. They targeted enemy ships one at a time, overwhelming them with coordinated attacks. "Focus fire on that cruiser," he ordered, "then swing left and hit the next one." 3 destroyers fired as one. The Velkari cruiser's shields collapsed. Its hull cracked. It exploded in a ball of fire. The destroyers were already turning toward their next target. In her fighter, Lieutenant Hyun Kang led Viper Squadron through clouds of enemy fire. The Velkari still could not track them. Human pilots were too fast, too unpredictable. They had evolved to chase prey across open plains. Their ancestors had hunted by running their targets to exhaustion. That endurance, that determination, now showed in how they flew. "Viper 2, break left," Hyun shouted. "Viper 7, cover her." The squadron moved as one. They had trained together for years. They knew each other's habits, each other's strengths. They did not need to think. They just acted. Enemy fighters tried to stop them. The Velkari pilots were skilled, but they fought as individuals. When one was threatened, the others did not help. When Hyun noticed this, he used it against them. "Focus on their leaders," he ordered. "The rest will fall apart." It worked. Without commanders to guide them, the enemy fighters became scattered and confused. Viper Squadron destroyed them piece by piece. On the bridge of the Busan's Fury, Admiral Kim watched the battle unfold. His fleet was taking losses. Good ships, good people, each death hurt like a wound in his heart, but they were winning. Then the Velkari commander made a mistake. He saw the human flagship and decided to destroy it personally. He brought his entire command group, 20 of the largest ships in the fleet, straight toward the Busan's fury. Kim saw them coming. He could have retreated. He could have called for help. Instead, he smiled. "Lyra," he said into his communicator, "now would be a good time for that surprise." Across the battlefield, the Aruni engineering ships suddenly changed course. They had been hanging back, waiting. Now they accelerated toward the Velkari command group. The enemy commander laughed. "Those tiny ships, they cannot harm us." He was wrong. The Aruni had been slaves for decades. They had repaired Velkari ships. They had studied Velkari technology, and they had found a weakness. Every Velkari shield had a frequency that could shut it down completely if you knew exactly how to trigger it. The Aruni knew. 40 engineering vessels fired a pulse that swept across the Velkari command group. Every shield failed at once. 20 massive warships were suddenly naked and vulnerable. The Terran fleet did not hesitate. Every ship within range opened fire. The Velkari command group died in seconds. 20 ships became clouds of debris. The enemy commander had just enough time to understand what had happened before his ship exploded around him. Without their leaders, the Velkari fleet fell apart. Ships began to flee. Some surrendered. Others fought on blindly, but they were quickly destroyed. By the end of the day, it was over. The Velkari armada was broken. Over 1,500 enemy ships were destroyed or captured. The coalition had lost 83 vessels. It was a high price, but they had won. Admiral Kim stood on his bridge and watched the survivors surrender. Beside him, Jiwoo Han was crying softly. He put a hand on her shoulder. "We did it," she whispered. "We did," he agreed, "all of us together." 1 year later, the Galactic Coalition was officially formed. Earth was a founding member, along with the Murray, the Aruni, and 15 other species. The Velkari Consortium was gone, its leaders tried for their crimes, its victims freed. On New Busan, a memorial stood in the central plaza. It was made of stone from 12 different worlds, shaped into a single pillar that reached toward the sky. Inscribed on it in 37 languages were the words, "You called, we came, never again." Lieutenant Una Park visited the memorial on its first anniversary. She was older now, with the rank of commander. She had seen things that changed her forever, but she still remembered the night when she first heard the signal, the night when everything began. A small hand slipped into hers. She looked down and saw the same Murray child she had comforted on the journey to New Busan. The child was older now, growing strong and healthy on this new world. The child looked up at her with large, dark eyes. Without words, it projected a single feeling into her mind. "Home." Una squeezed the small hand and smiled. Yes, she thought, this is home for all of us. Above them, the stars shone in the night sky. Once, they had seemed cold and empty. Now they were full of friends, allies, people who had chosen to stand together against the darkness. The humans had answered a cry for help. They had fought a war they did not have to fight. They had nearly died for strangers they had never met. And in doing so, they had found their place in the universe, not as conquerors but as protectors, not as the strongest but as the ones who used their strength for others. The Deathworlders had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be strong. And the galaxy would never forget.